I've just received an exciting package. Hi guys and welcome to Whisky Geek, Ben here, and today I am super excited to have just received the Micro Provenance Series 8 from Bruichladdich. This is a selection of 3 Port Charlotte whiskies, and the idea behind this series is to compare and contrast and try and tease out where the different influence of barley type, cask maturation, all of this plays an effect on the whiskey, on the spirit. So it's very geeky, just what I want, loads of information behind it. Great stuff. But I am super lucky to have actually got hold of these. The website was really struggling to keep up with demand. I think the servers were not able to cope. It was about 2 hours that I was keeping an eye on it, and every time the site went up I tried to put the order through, and eventually it got through. But I know there's a lot of people who weren't so lucky, so hopefully you might be able to vicariously appreciate these through this video. Fingers crossed, I hope. So let's take a quick look at these labels. They've all got this same little blurb: Micro Provenance Series, Single Cask, Cask Evolution Exploration, Islay Single Malt Scotch, Compare Contrast. They're all 200ml. This one is 61.4%. This is cask number 1860. Barley type, Oxbridge Publican, distilled 01/06/2011. Cask type was a first fill bourbon, warehouse 14-12B. And it was bottled 2018, so it's 6 years old. So the next one is cask number 3582. This one is 62.6% volume. The barley type is Oxbridge, distilled the 1st of the 12th 2008. The cask type is second fill Rivisaltes, warehouse 6-L17, and it was bottled 2018, so it's 9 years old. And finally, we have cask number 3403. This one is 61.4%. Barley type is Optic, distilled the 25th of the 11th 2008. Cask type first fill bourbon, warehouse 13-16A, and it was bottled 2018, so this one is another 9 years. So we've got 2 9 years and 2 first fill bourbons. So I guess I'm going to start down this end with the youngest first fill bourbon. I'll make some notes and then I'll share them with you. Ah, sod! Looks like I need to go and print more of my tasting sheets. All I really want to do is taste them. Let's take a quick look at the colour on this one. It's about a shade 3 or champagne. Really quite a light but crisp and obviously natural gold. So the nose on this one is really wonderfully smooth, velvety. It opens with a pang of vanilla and begins to show some of the peat influence, but it's rubbery, it's ashy, but it's quite rounded and integrated. It sits behind the other flavours and just kind of bolsters everything. It's not at all pushing itself on you. Then you get some of the floral and those dry hay tones. It's kind of like a spring meadow, but there's a soft, super creamy, kind of walnutty and nutmeg body. It's really full, it's really pleasant and fills the nostrils really well. It's opening really nicely as well. As you're letting it breathe, there's more green notes coming through. The sweetness subsides, but kind of green malt is beginning to develop, and a little bit of resinous wood. There's some very gentle wood tannins in there. But you only really find a prickle if you really push it. You have to go looking. Very enjoyable nose. Now moving on to the palate. So initially it almost feels cooling. You get this soft, creamy vanilla, really thick, nice body. Then some of the dry wood and those meadowy tones begin to come through. And there's a kind of a green herbal note to it as well. So the finish has all of that dry wood and those soft tannins. This ozone zing carries through and it's joined by a bit of a peppery prickle. But again, it's not a harsh prickle, it's really quite pleasant. It's more of an experience than it is cloying or a bite. It's warming, it's medium length, it's not a massively long finish, and then those vanillas kind of linger on. It's still a bit creamy. Now, given the strength of this, it's really quite dangerously easy to drink, very pleasant beginning to end. There's no real abrasion, it's all very homogenized and easy sipping. Interestingly, the peat characteristics aren't that visible past the nose. There's not much of it on the palate or the finish. It's kind of Bruichladdich-esque. Now, you could expect that peated characteristic to show a little bit more as the bottle goes down maybe, but definitely if you add some water, open it up. But as it stands, it's really thoroughly enjoyable, and that age, the 6 years, isn't really showing as particularly young. It's really well rounded. I always think that that higher ABV can kind of compensate for a lack of age quite well. So next up is cask 3582. This is the second fill, Rivesaltes. Now that is a French wine region down south. They make sweet wines using a technique that stops the musk from fermenting while there's still a high sugar content, but they use a Grenache of 3 types, the Noir, Blanc and Gris. 9 years old, Oxbridge barley and 62.6%. So there is a deeper colour to this one, about a shade 6 or Chardonnay. The nose on this one opens wonderfully biscuity and cereally, but behind that there's a really nice sweet tone, vinous red wine. It's not particularly sharp, it's more tanninic. It's a little bit bitter and organic. But behind that there's those sweet red fruits. It's kind of dark stone fruits. And that begins to develop and become like candied citrus tones, and some cranberry as well. It's almondy smooth and a little bit creamy. Then there's this wonderful kind of briny, salty seaweed tone, and peat begins to show, a little bit asphalty, more of that ozone characteristic, and it's got quite a bit more heat, more prickle on the nose than the previous one did. Now let's move on and try it on the palate. So that palate takes an interesting turn. It's not really what I was expecting from the nose at all. There's red berries and kind of a tart plum note to it, but then this heat comes rushing in and it brings a lot of organic tannins, heavy red wine influence, a bit bitter and strong. It's not unpleasant, it's just not what you're expecting from the nose. There's that maritime and ozone high note to it, and there's quite a heat and some prickle to it, an ashy note, and there's some spices in there as well. It's a Tullibardine-esque fuzzy spice. It's kind of linked to the organic tannins. So the finish brings through all of that heat, the organic tannins, the bitter tone. There's a hint of fruit, but all of the sweetness is gone, and that ash kind of lingers on. But this has really quite a long finish to it. So again, on cask 3582, those peaty tones aren't that evident. You still get traces of it on the palate and on the finish, but again, it's the background, it's bolstering things. I would not have pegged this one as a 62.6%. Even though it is solventy, it's got heat and prickle, it doesn't come across as that strong. I think the nose was making promises that the palate didn't quite fulfill. The nose was very sweet and fruity, and then the palate took a bitter organic turn. Not unpleasant, just unexpected. So I'm looking forward to sitting with this one now that I'm kind of knowing what I'm coming to and seeing how it opens to me, how it develops. So next up is cask 3403, first fill bourbon, 9 years old. Let's get it poured. So the colour of this one sits back down at about a shade 3, champagne. So now let's go ahead and explore the nose. So on the nose, this one's giving you plenty of that vanilla. It's got a dry woodiness to it, but it's a little bit resinous. There's a gentle heat and a prickle to it. And then there's something kind of savoury, or almost like a peaty tone hiding in the background. It's kind of like a savoury meat, but it's hard to find. There's a hint of floral honey and a little bit creamy, It's hiding behind that solventy tone. There's also something like a cocoa powder, something like that, but it's a little bit tough to gauge at this strength. I have a feeling this one's going to open quite nicely with some water. Let's move on to the palate. It opens with a nice soft woody tone, a little bit green, some of those cereals, dry hay, and then this again body of heat starts to come through. And there's like a creamy vanilla and some lemon that's fighting with that heat. It's trying to show itself, but the heat's kind of smothering it. But then it mellows quite quickly after that first sip, and there's like lemon curd and vanilla mousse, some pastry, a cereally oaty tone coming through, and that kind of progresses through onto the finish with a nice warmth, those woody tannins. There's a hint of that vanilla, but it's not particularly sweet, more of those kind of citrus pithy tannins. Yeah, it's a simple one. It's not bad by any means, but it's interesting to draw the comparison between this 9-year-old and the 6-year-old. I mean, they're different barleys as well, different warehouse points, you know, who knows what the variable is, but I think there is possibly more flavour at this strength to the 6-year-old than there is to the 9-year-old, but I've got a suspicion this one will open up really nicely with a little bit of water, so I'm looking forward to sitting with it. So this has been a great little series to do some comparisons and geek out over. As it stands, it's hard to draw any real conclusions. I'm definitely going to have to come back and do some more exploring, some more geeking out. I think at the moment I preferred this one. This was my favourite, the youngest. This one, the second one, was interesting, but that kind of bitter tannin tone, it wasn't what I was expecting, so it caught me off guard a little bit. Maybe going back to it knowing that, I'll enjoy it some more, but that nose was fantastic. This one, it needs water. I'm fairly sure with a touch of water, with some time to breathe, it's going to open up and give me even more flavour. So no matter what, they've been great fun, and I've got plenty there to come back to and explore. So cheers for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please chuck a like and a comment below and consider subscribing for more whiskey content. Cheers!